Hello, everybody.
Everyone watching.
Happy Thursday, 2 days after St.
Can't
Patrick's Day.
believe it's almost the end of March.
I know it's kind of crazy,
How
but
actually insane is that?
yeah, but that also means it's Writers to Watch time, and we're really excited for you all to be here. We've got a cool lineup tonight.
Yeah, we're already getting a lot of fun comments saying how much everyone's looking forward to it. So
Yeah,
I
and
can't
about
wait.
everyone's weather, I think we're kind of all over the snow right now.
The amount of times today I've spoken to people in office saying, like, where's spring? I get it. It's on the mind,
Ugh.
but hopefully it's coming soon. I wish nice weather to everyone and not weather that goes by too fast. Like, let's enjoy it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm Lainey Mays on the adult library marketing team, and my colleague,
I'm Grace Caternello. Hello,
and
hello. And we're
we're
really
here. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying we're really excited for today's lineup, and I'm gonna pass it off to Lainey. Are you first? I feel like you're first.
Yes, well, I just want to say we're very
Yeah.
excited. We have four awesome authors for you tonight. On our March Writers to Watch episode, we have Meg Charlton, author of Voyagers, that's out June 16th. We have Kelly Rimmer, author of The Story Keeper, out July 21st. We have Alexandra Andrews, author of The Fine Art of Lying, which, what a perfect title, on sale May 5th. And then we have Natalie Sue, author of You'll Love It Here, on sale August 11th. So we've got a nice night for you in store, and we can't wait to tell you more about these authors and these books. Be sure to put your questions in the chat. We're going to look at that. We're going to bring everyone back on halfway through, and we want them to hear from you. So comments and questions, please put it in. And welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. So we're going to start off with Voyager. So Meg Charlton, come on screen. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be here. How are you?
Oh, we're so happy to have you. I'm good. And I told you offline that I am just really excited to hear more about the book because I loved it so much, as I did all of these books. So I'm gonna do an intro and then I'm gonna hand it off to you, and then we can gush a little when you're done. Okay. So Meg Charlton was born, raised, and still lives in New York City. Her work has appeared in Slate, Lux, Vice, the Yale Review, Atlas Obscura, and the anthology Letters to a Stranger, Essays to the Ones Who Haunt Us. She holds an MFA in fiction from Brooklyn College and teaches at Sackett Street Writers, and she's the co-author of the Substack Self-Helpings. Voyager is your debut novel. Big claps. We love having debuts on. And it's so great. I'm going to hand it off to you to tell us a little bit more.
Oh my God, thank you, Lainey. And thank you everyone who I can't see out there in sort of the internet ether who is here tonight. This is such an honor. I'm so excited. Um, so the seeds for my novel Voyagers really first came to me when I was still working as a news producer and I attended the Roswell UFO Festival as part of a documentary film crew. And I was actually traveling down there with a famous skeptic who was purported to be the inspiration for Scully on the X-Files, but that is another story. But as we were sort of speaking to people at the festival, and as I read more and more about UFOs and close encounters, I became really, really fascinated with them, not just on the level of, wondering what was really going on, whether people were really seeing aliens or not, but really about the emotional content, about what it felt like as a person to go through an experience like that. Because the questions I think that UFO encounters raise about the reliability of memory, the nature of belief, about like how much trust we can put in narratives, like both the ones that we tell ourselves and the ones that we receive from the media or the government, did not feel confined only to the world of ufology. They just seemed like more extreme versions of ones that we all grapple with. We all have memories, especially from childhood, that diverge from those of our parents or our friends or our siblings. And so we're all confronted at some point in our lives, in some way, large or small, with the choice of whether or not to trust our own version of events, with whether or not to deem ourselves like a reliable witness to our own life. And these are the things that my protagonists, Alex and Anna, are grappling with in Voyagers. The two of them meet as 6-year-olds in 1997 when their families are staying in adjacent vacation rentals in Palm Springs. And they come from very different families, but they're kind of united in this like incredible loneliness, and they're instantly drawn to one another. And it might have just stayed like friends on vacation and they never see each other again, except one night, the two of them vanish from these rentals without a trace. And when they reappear 2 days later, just as mysteriously and miraculously as they disappeared, the story they tell is interpreted as an alien abduction. And this whole incident turns them into these kind of like surreal child stars, sort of like Olsen twins meets the X-Files. And the fame that comes from this bonds them together seemingly for life. But then as teenagers, that bond is tested when their divergent beliefs about what really happened to them as children start to tear the two of them apart. And now in their 30s, Alex and Anna are drawn back together when the world seems to be on the precipice of actual first contact with aliens. And something I kept joking about when we were working on this book with all of the news that kept coming out, I was like, reality is going to beat us to the punch. Like, we're going to get scooped on first contact. But the two of them are sort of brought back together by this external event. And Voyagers is about many things. It is about aliens, both, real, and in one very special case, an imaginary alien. But it is also about storytelling, about the ways that stories can trap us or set us free. It is about the warping effects of fame and the seductions of conspiracy, about family and truth and memory and class and the nature of reality itself. But above all, it is about Alex and Anna. It is about a singular friendship between two very complicated people and what it means to love someone like that across vast distances of time and space. And I'm just so grateful to be here tonight to talk about it with you. And I can't wait to hear about all of my fellow authors' books as well.
That was so great. It was really great. This book blew me away. I felt like it was like a daydream, but like in the best way. Where you're like, I don't know. I just kept questioning myself while reading it, and I just needed to know more. I needed to uncover what really happened. And I'm still thinking about it all these months after reading it because we read it pretty early. But I think it's so witty and reflective. Weirdly, like the alien abduction is not the oddest, most pressing thing happening to these two characters at the moment.
Definitely not.
Which is really funny. And I'm so fascinated by aliens and outer space. It's just fascinating. But the joy is really in the read, so I won't give anything away. But I just thought it was so cool to uncover like the history along with the concurrent present timeline. And then Alan, I know you kind of mentioned that. I don't know if you want to say anything about these like interspersed POVs, but maybe you just want to leave it at an alien. I don't know, but
no, I mean, I can give a little. So the story is told from Alex's perspective, except for these sort of interstitials, which are told kind of from the perspective of an imaginary friend that Alex and Anna invent as children, who is Alan, the alien. And as the book goes on, Alan's sections kind of get longer and longer and longer. And Alan kind of has his own narrative arc, and I won't really say anything else.
it's great. No,
Yeah.
it's great. I just wanted to read. So, Day Beautiful is on the most anticipated list, and it says Charlton writes with such pristine propulsion and packs a punch on every page. This is going to be the book everyone loves, and will be talk of the town come summer. Just want to say, what a wonderful quote. You're getting a lot of love, and we can't wait to talk more.
Thank you, Lainey.
Thank you. We'll see you in a minute. I'm gonna hand it off to Grace.
Thank you, Lainey. Okay, I'm excited to welcome on Kelly Rimmer, who is joining us all the way from Australia today. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Oh, thank you for being here on your Friday morning.
Yes.
And I'm really excited to talk to you about the Story Keeper. But first, I just want to say, can we look at this beautifully designed package? Those sprayed edges are gorgeous. Um, and this is a paperback, but it will also be available as a simultaneous hardcover for all of you librarians. So I'm going to read a quick bio before we talk about the Story Keeper. Kelly Rimmer is the worldwide New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of The German Wife, The Warsaw Orphan, and The Things We Cannot Say. Her novels have been translated into more than 20 languages. She lives in rural Australia with her husband and 2 children and fantastically naughty dogs, Sully and Basil. And if they make an appearance, I promise you nobody will complain.
I locked them out of the room because they absolutely would want to make an appearance otherwise.
Totally understandable. So I'm so excited that you're here to talk to us about the Story Keeper. It was kind of the perfect book at this time. I feel like I needed something to really fall into, and this was the perfect book for that. So without further ado, I'll let you tell everybody about the Story Keeper.
Thank you. It is the story of a woman who unexpectedly finds herself in a second chapter of her life. Her marriage implodes, she loses her business, and she decides to go home. So she returns to the small rural Australian town where she grew up and decides to restore the historic mansion that she lived in with her uncle and mother in her childhood. Almost as soon as she gets there, she finds a box of books called The Midnight Estate. And when she starts reading that book, she finds some striking parallels between the book and the house she's in and her family story. And so it really is an ode to stories and bookstores and books. And it's a story of a woman discovering the truth about her family in a mansion that may or may not have a perspective of its own. So I've got some photos to show you about the inspiration for the mansion in my book. My mansion is fictional and it's called Warambira. But Forbes is a real town. That's where the book is set. It's actually where I grew up. And so there's some beautiful historic homes there. And I really wanted to capture that old, creepy mansion feel. But also, I worked at a heritage consultancy for a little while when I was in my 20s. And I was so fascinated by the way that heritage architects can take a historic home and bring the history out of it and convey it through the structural form. So this house here is called New Anglesey, and it is quite similar on the exterior to my fictional mansion Warambira. See the beautiful lace, wrought iron lacework and the imposing front doorway with the transom above it. And then if you could move to the next photo, which is the one that says Karawabiti with palms. So this house here is also at Forbes. And Forbes is, as I said, in rural Australia, but see these palm trees along the front here. In 1912, some very bright person decided to beautify the town by planting Canary Island palms basically everywhere. So they're not like native to Australia and they're pretty much nowhere else, but everywhere in Forbes are these towering, beautiful palms. So in my fictional mansion, I put some towering, beautiful palms out the front to really capture the setting, the real life setting. And Karawabiti is this very imposing, very creepy historic mansion. If you could move to the next slide with the staircase. So this is Karawabiti's real staircase, and the staircase in my story looks exactly like this. As soon as I saw this staircase in Karawabiti, something clicked in my mind as how I was going to have the plot unfold. And this staircase is central in the book. So it's right at the front door. It's as you walk into my fictional mansion, that's the first thing you see, just like in Karawabiti. And the story kind of revolves, and the action in the house revolves around this very steep, very imposing double width staircase. I actually happen to own a bookstore here in Orange, which is a couple of hours from Forbes. If you could show Grace a photo of my bookstore. Oh, this is me in my office. Actually, I can talk about that first. I dictate my first drafts. So here's a photo of me sitting in my office dictating away. You can see my very big, very imposing camera in front of my face. It must have been, it's late in the day in that photo and I don't look tired. So I don't think I was actually writing that day. But this is where the magic and struggle happens, right here at my desk. And now onto the next one. Yeah, so this is my bookstore that I own. And the reason that I wanted to write a book like this for a while, I had the idea to write a book within a book structure, and I was just looking for the right story. And this book, which is so much about the stories we tell ourselves and the stories of how we make sense of our lives, this one was pretty much just felt like the right time to do it. And so central to this book are some scenes that take place in a bookstore. And since I bought this bookstore in 2022, I've experienced this whole other world, a whole other side to publishing, a whole other side to telling stories and sharing stories. And I wanted to capture something of the magic that happens in bookstores. So in my book, there are some key scenes that take place in a bookstore modeled after a real life bookstore in Forbes. But I've called it Turn the Page, which is named after a bookstore in Westfield, Indiana, that I zoom into pretty much every year and have done since 2020. And I love their book clubs. Their book clubs are so animated. Everybody is connected in the community revolves around stories, and it's just such a beautiful, special thing. But the real bookstore in Forbes is called the Book Dispensary. If you could show the picture of me with Debbie. So this is Debbie Pryor, who owns that bookstore, and she's an ex-pharmacy operator. That's why it's called Book Dispensary. And in Australia, the book was released as The Midnight Estate. So here's me at the launch over there in the real bookstore, where a key scene takes place in the book around a book club called a Readers Club, which is a silent book club. So in my fictional bookstore, the bookseller runs a book club where people just come and read quietly together. And then at the end, they may or may not talk about the stories that they're enjoying. So I think that just about covers it. Grace, have I missed anything?
I don't think so. That was fantastic. I actually one of my first questions for you is about talking about the bookstore. So you beat me to the punch. Such a fun tidbit about you, and you can definitely feel like your love of stories come out through this book. I want to read a quote, but I also want to call out some people in the chat are saying that, the mansions, the estates you showed gave New Orleans vibes. So I thought that too when I looked at them. I was like especially the first one, I was like, oh, that does kind of remind me of New Orleans. That was cool. But I wanted to read this quote by Julia Kelly, who says, Kelly Rimmer is at her most skillful here, beautifully capturing in exquisite detail an emotional, haunting tale that is sure to keep readers eagerly turning the page. And I have to agree, this was so hard to put down. Every time I had to take a break, I wanted to get right back to it. And it's really a treat. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
and
Grace.
We'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to invite Alexandra on screen. Hello, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone who's tuning in. I so appreciate it.
Oh, and thank you for being here. I had such a fun time reading The Fine Art of Lying, especially like I was reading it on the train. There's something about reading a book set in New York while you're in New York. It feels very like, I don't know, like this feels very cool girl of me, very fun. So it was a really great read, and I'm just really happy you can be here today. So I'm going to read your bio really quick. Alexandra Andrews has worked as a journalist, editor, and copywriter in New York and Paris. Her novel, Who is Maud Dixon, was published in 28 languages around the world and was named a best book / mystery of the year by the New York Times, NPR, Time, and New York Post, and Entertainment Weekly. She lives in Brooklyn with her husband and children. And you've gotten 2-star reviews so far on this book, one from Kirkus, one from Publishers Weekly, and lots of love rolling in for it. And we're just really excited that you can be here with us today. So I'm going to pass off to you to talk about The Fine Art of Lying.
Thank you so much. So I actually had coffee the other day with Meg Charlton of Voyagers, and we had both read each other's books, and she called my book a sexy mystery, which I just could not love more. And now I'm fully co-opting that term as my own. So my book is a sexy mystery set in Manhattan's elite art world. The protagonist is Claire Bast, a young woman who has had a passion for art ever since she was younger, and it brings her to New York City to a job at the Met. And it's there that she meets Jed Bast, a very wealthy lawyer from a prominent New York family, and she's swept off her feet. So fast forward 5 years to when the book actually starts, and Claire and Jed are married. They're living on the Upper East Side, and they have a 3-year-old daughter named Sadie. From the outside, Claire seems to have the perfect life. She's got the rich husband, the penthouse apartment, the adorable child. The only problem is it's not really a life that Claire herself ever wanted or sought herself. And actually inside, she sort of feels like she's drowning a little bit. She's abandoned her PhD in art history, and she spends her days with a toddler, which, if anyone has ever done that, is not quite as fun as it sounds. And her mother-in-law is always present to tell her exactly what she's doing wrong, which is everything. So it's in the midst of this malaise that she encounters this rare painting by a painter called Blake Webley, who happens to be the subject of the dissertation that she never finished. What's more, it is hanging on the wall of a very attractive French art dealer named Gabriel Prévost. And one thing leads to another, and Claire sort of tries to restrain herself, but they end up embarking on a very intense affair. So Claire's feeling a lot of guilt and ambivalence, but at the same time, she feels herself like coming back to life, and she feels like herself in a way she hasn't in years. However, everything sort of comes to a halt when Gabriel is murdered, and the Blake Webley painting, which is called Longfin, disappears. And the police soon zero in on Claire as their main suspect. So she takes it upon herself to figure out what really happened the night that Gabriel was killed, and encounters a lot of bitter museum curators and unscrupulous dealers and international criminals, and soon starts to realize that the missing painting is part of a conspiracy that's much wider than she thought and started much earlier than she believed, and sort of is going to touch every facet of her life. And she's also finding through the investigation that she is sort of changing so much that by the time it's over, she doesn't really fit in her old life anymore, and she has to find a new way to live. So I started this book during COVID. I had a toddler and I had a newborn, and like Claire, was losing my mind. And then about a month after my first book came out, I went to an Alice Neel show at the Met, and it was New York was still very weird. The subways were empty, everything was empty, and I walked into the Met, and it was packed. I mean, I had to wait 30 minutes in a line just to get into the exhibition. And it was clear that like people had just been craving this. And I was walking around looking at all the painting. I mean, she makes these beautiful sort of haunting portraits. And I felt very connected to the people in the room. And I felt connected to the artist. I felt connected to the subjects of the portraits. And it just felt like I myself was like coming back to life a little bit. And that's when the idea for this novel came to me. I mean, my first book was about a writer, and I think I'm very interested in sort of the creative process. So I knew I wanted to write about the art world, and I had a lot of fun because some of the artists are totally made up, and I got to make up like fake paintings and fake backstories, and then some of them are real. And so I hope it might be sort of fun for some people to like try to parse which is which. I was told by one reader recently that they were convinced that Blake Webley was a real artist, and they went down a rabbit hole trying to find any evidence of him, which they cannot because I made him up. But I do hope that this book sort of like scratches an itch in the same way that Alice Neel show did for me. And I have a few like inspiration photos of just like touch tones of what I was thinking of when I was writing the book. So this is The Red Studio by Matisse, a very famous painting. And I'm just going to read very short opening lines of my book because the first words of my book are Venetian red. Venetian red, that was what sprang to mind first. The crimson-hued pigment favored by Renaissance artists like Titian and Tintoretto. The blood pooling at Claire's feet was the same rich and rusty shade, as if an old master were about to dip in a brush. So this is painted in Venetian red, which is this pigment made from hematite, I guess, found near Venice. So that becomes one of the like touchstones of the book a little bit. It's also just a painting that I really adore, the paintings within the paintings, speaking of books within books. And then the next one is by Agnes Martin. It's called Summer. So when I first wrote this book, I didn't use a made-up artist. I used a real artist. It was Agnes Martin, and I is someone who I love. I love her grid paintings, but I had a very logistical problem, which was all her canvases are 6 feet by 6 feet or 5 feet by 5 feet, and that's very hard to steal. And I needed the painting to be stolen, so it was my husband who suggested that I just make up an artist, which seemed like blasphemy to me, but I did do it. But in the descriptions of some of the paintings, including Longfin, the painting at the center of the book, I am thinking very consciously of Agnes Martin's grid paintings. And then the next image is, of course, the Met. So I'm a lifelong New Yorker, and it was so fun, like setting parts of the book in real places that I got to walk around and revisit. So I hope it feels like New York is like another character in the book, but this is where Claire gets her first job. And then on the next is, of course, MoMA. The museum in my book is called MoCA, the Museum of Contemporary Art, which maybe I shouldn't say is based on MoMA, but you can all probably figure that out. And then the last image is I have a very good friend from high school who actually opened her own gallery in Chelsea called Barry Campbell, which is a beautiful gallery. And she was sort of my resource for a lot of my art questions. And this space was what I was thinking of for Gabriel's own gallery. So if you ever wanted to feel like you were stepping into a book, you could literally just go visit this gallery on West 25th Street. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, that was wonderful. You know what? I'm no longer embarrassed to admit that I also was like, is this a real artist?
I love that.
No, I think it speaks a lot to how fleshed out the character, like the artist was in the art, because you have such a knack at describing the art on the page. It was so fun to read. But I'm not, I was a little like, okay, I feel super uncultured. I should go to more museums. I was like, all right, this is not a real artist. I feel better about it.
You've got to pass.
Yeah, so thank you for telling me that, I was not the only one that thought that. So thank you so much. I'm gonna read a quote really quick from Ada Calhoun, author of Crush, who said, "Ruthless socialites, international intrigue, a torrid affair, a shocking murder, and a baffling art heist? Yes, please. With her playful, lightning-paced new mystery, Alexandra Andrews is moneyed Manhattan's very own Agatha Christie," which is amazing praise and so well-fitting. So thank you so much. And I'm gonna pass this off to Lainey, and we'll see you in a few.
That's good.
Like we got a lore drop that you had lunch together. That was really great. I'm glad you connected. Yeah, before. That's so funny. Thank you. I'll talk to you in just a second. I'm going to welcome on Natalie Sue to talk about You'll Love It Here.
Hello,
Hi.
everyone. Hi. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I am so excited to be here, and everyone that's joined in. All the other books sound so great. Yeah. So this is about
I'm
You'll
gonna
Love
do
It.
a bio
Right.
really quick. But also your camera may not be on for me. Just making sure that it's popping up. There we go. Perfect.
Sorry
Can you
about that.
see us? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I have to give some flowers first, if that's okay, before we jump right in. I want to read bio, of
I
course.
forgot, yes.
Not that, you need an introduction, because I feel a little starstruck because I loved your first book. I Hope This Finds You Well so much.
That is so
And
sweet.
this book too. But like that book, I feel like everywhere I went in the office, everyone wanted to talk about that book. It was amazing. So hello, I'm so
Thank you
happy
so
to be
much.
meeting you.
Thank you so much, yeah.
So Natalie Sue is the best-selling and award-winning author of I Hope This Finds You Well, which everyone stop everything you're doing, go read it right now. And she is a Canadian author of Iranian and British descent. And when she stopped writing, she enjoys binging great and terrible TV, attempting pottery. I want to hear more about that, and procuring houseplants. So she lives in Calgary with her husband, daughter, and dog. And just some things that have been said about your writing by, a few people you might have heard of. Taylor Jenkins Reid, for someone who needs a good laugh. Glamorous is a true delight. People wickedly funny. We have Shelby Van Pelt's surprisingly sweet and totally made my day. Julia Quinn, so good and also so unexpected. So can't wait to hear more about the upcoming book. You'll love it here. So take it away.
Thank you. Yes, this is the proper time for me to speak now. So my book is about a woman named Mona, and she's just closing out on her sort of second 5-year plan. She's very driven, and she's just about to leave the apartment or she expects to leave the apartment that she's been working hard to kind of upgrade from, when a small setback at work leads to her having to take a bit of time off, and that that setback is due to some unaddressed grief due to the recent loss of her father. And after a series of like unfortunate events triggered by her, the landlord takes a tumble, and she is sent to, or actually, ends up having to sort of like feeling guilty about it, and is guilted into kind of being the reluctant super. And so she's offered a deal to kind of help the place sell, like the building sell, and then she'll be able to get that upgrade at work that she had been seeking. And this is kind of where things get fun, because she slowly kind of gets to know her neighbors and the people that she sort of prejudged and made a few assumptions for. And she's sort of nicknamed them like, that's the weird girl beside me and things like that. But then as she slowly gets to know them a little bit more, she starts to realize that they all kind of have struggles that are very similar to hers, and she might actually have more in common with them than she realized, and maybe even then, like with her work colleagues and stuff. And it's inspired by my own times in apartment living. I spent a good decade in different various apartments, but then I was in one apartment for about 5 years where I didn't get to know my neighbors at all. But then, like, in 2013, our city flooded, and it included like my apartment flooded, and we were evacuated. And when we came back, we were all kind of ruffling through like the debris and stuff. And when I was talking to my neighbors, it would be like, hello, oh, you've been living next to me for 5 years. Is this your bedside table? And like it was really sort of sad in a way, because we had known each other in that way that you kind of can identify people in your life. And, like when you're at the coffee shop and you see that same person every day, or like to bring it to librarians, I'm sure you have patrons that you never speak to, but you have a nickname for them, like, oh, this is that patron that loves mysteries and that kind of thing. So I always thought it was like fascinating that there's people that are like sort of forced proximity in our lives and that we never get to know. And then after this flood, we were all kind of had to move out for different reasons. And it was sort of tragic that we only kind of got to know each other during that time. And it's kind of the deal.
Yeah, I think you balance being, the funny and the serious so well in your work. And these are like
Thank you.
flawed characters, but you kind of uncover what makes all humans flawed, right? You're zeroing in on this one person you're following, but there's so much to connect them. And I love that story about, like, you don't ever talk to your neighbors, but something so terrible brings you together and you realize, oh, like we do cohabit this space all the time, right? But I think there's an importance of understanding and empathy at the center of like these witty reads. And so I feel like I would be remiss not to say that there's a dog and some, some
Yeah.
nice diner owners, if you want to talk
Oh
about
yes,
that.
the diner owner, yes. Completely. So yeah, there's a diner owner, Sammy, and he really loves the community that exists around um the apartment. Um and he's sort of like against a lot of the construction that is going on. He understands progress and stuff, but there's a lot of the apartments going up are kind of like easing out the people that were there, and it's making like sort of like the newer condos, and so he's sort of against that, but and so Mona is kind of going against everything he sort of is looking for. And but then they share some cultural stuff, like I'm Iranian and so is Sammy, and so that is kind of nice too. I always love to explore and represent my culture when I write.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you said that. And food. Like food is
Yes, I love.
everywhere. Made me hungry.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. And I can't wait to talk to you a little bit more. We're going to bring everyone back on and we're going to read some questions and comments. This has been so lovely. I just want to go reread everything right now. And so thank you so much for sharing, everyone. Okay, Grace, we've gotten a lot of great comments I saw.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. We've gotten a lot of excitement. I did want to say really quick, Natalie, we just had our librarian friend Samantha say that was a crazy flood. It's so cool you were able to write a book and something good came out of what was such an awful time, fellow Alberta resident here. So
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah. Oh, hello,
um
Albert. Yeah.
yeah, but a lot of excitement in the chat, especially a lot of love for everyone's covers. I've noticed lots of love for the covers. Um, Lots of congrats to Meg on the debut. So yeah, we've got a lot of love going on. But I saw a question that I think everyone can answer, very general. Um, so whoever feels moved first. When developing characters, where do you draw inspirations for their traits? So whoever feels moved to speak first.
Sure. I I always feel that plot breeds character. So whenever I'm coming up with a concept, like I'm a very concept first writer, and so as soon as I'm like, for example, with my debut, I was like, who should get access to the emails should be someone that doesn't really talk to their colleagues. And then with this book, I felt like it was someone that had to be sort of very forward thinking and like very perfectionist to then, and like very judgmental almost, to then sort of be thrown into a world where she's interacting with people. And so for me, developing characters, it really comes down to like, who would the plot best serve for the arc on them, if that makes sense.
I feel like I had a really similar experience with Voyagers, where when I was thinking about, these two characters who go through this kind of alleged alien encounter, I was really sort of thinking about like who would be the two people who have like the most different reactions to that, kind of to like run two different personalities like through the algorithm of that experience and see what came out. And I think that, yeah, I sort of Alex is extremely ruminative, extremely internal, someone who's really fixated on kind of drilling down to kind of the most like persnickety version of the truth. And, he turns out to be a lawyer. And then we have in Anna someone who kind of doesn't get bogged down in those depths, who really stays on like the surface of life and is very practical and is very charming and is very alluring and charismatic, and very external. And so I was interested to sort of keep bouncing them off of each other and see what happened.
I've always wanted to be that type of writer where I try to I come up with a plot, it's all mapped out, and then I just like my characters they just are feeling dead or something. And I always have to do character first, and then I feel like that sort of informs where the plot goes, or I decide I want to spend more time with this character. And so naturally the plot is going to sort of gravitate around her. I also find dialogue really helps. Like sometimes I'm just typing super, super fast, like a dialogue, and I just hear their personalities coming out. Some of it is just from myself, to be entirely honest. But I get nervous saying that because my first book was about a woman who went crazy and murdered her boss. So that was not me. But some of the motherhood stuff in this book was me.
I'm glad you clarified. That's probably
Yeah.
good to, to clarify. Yeah, Kelly, I have to say I'm intrigued by the diction. You said you dictate everything and that's
Yeah.
how you write. I can't like how does that work? I don't know that we've had someone who has said that's exactly how they write, and so I'm intrigued.
Well, I try to write in a conversational style. I want it to feel like you're sitting down having a cup of tea with me and I'm just telling you a story. But it started on my fourth book. I got RSI from typing. I was working full time in software development, so I was typing all day and then going home and trying to write at night. And apparently there are limits to the amount of typing you can do over a sustained period of time. So I had a deadline and I was determined to meet it. So I tried using dictation software and it just like unlocked. It just suits my process so much. It's strange. I sit here and literally talk to myself for hours a day, but it's sometimes I just need to dictate it so I can see it now because I've been doing it for so long. And it just is how it works. It's just my process.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love hearing about how, different people write in different settings, different modes. Selene, you had a question.
Yeah, I so Pam Gardo in the chat said, Voyagers, have you cast the narrator or narrators for the audiobook yet? And I can tell that we have. I don't know if you have any anecdotes about the audio. If so, go for it. But they said I will definitely be listening to this one. So yeah, if you have an anecdote, if you don't, that's totally fine. I can tell them who it is.
Oh, are we allowed to say who it is?
Oh, well, it's online. Maybe I'll just say that and they go find it themselves.
Oh
But
yeah,
yes,
I
it
mean
is been cast.
no, I mean I love I'll just whatever. I'll just say it. This is for the it's for the real heads. His name is Michael Crouch. And he seems wonderful. I haven't talked to him yet. But I love audio books. And it was really important to me that we find a narrator who I felt like could really embody Alex and all of his sort of neurotic sweetness. And so finding sort of the voice that was the right match for that was really important to me. And I'm so excited to hear it. I heard a little audition. He did, a little bit of Alan, or not an audition, but like a sample. And I was excited to hear how he would do the Alan sections as well. So that was really, really exciting.
I love that. Well, there you go. Now they can put a note for the audio. Thank you. Grace.
Yeah, Alexandra, when I was reading, I kept, feeling what I interpret as like this looming feeling of isolation from Claire, whether it was isolation from how she thought her life was going to be, how motherhood felt isolating to her, to feeling kind of like a little bit of an outsider from not having the same background as the people she's around. Can you talk more about those themes of class and motherhood and how they played a role in the book?
Yeah, I didn't actually think about it until right now, but when you were saying that Claire is feeling so isolated, which she is, and then I was writing it during COVID, which I had never put two and two together. But she does when she marries into this, she doesn't just sort of marry into his family, she marries into this new world where it's like the Upper East Side and summers in East Hampton and charity benefits and dinners and she just stops seeing a lot of her old friends. Like, as people in New York know, like if someone's two subway rides away, like you're just not going to see them that much. And Jed, her husband, and her friends don't totally click. It's not like they don't like each other. It's just like it's not fun. There's not laughter. And it's all these like little tiny decisions. And then all of a sudden she finds herself alone and sort of loses herself. And I think what I noticed when I was writing this book is that like it actually takes work to maintain yourself. And a lot of it is like having it reflected back to you from other people and your social relationships. And then I think new motherhood just isolates you an incredible amount. So it was sort of all of these things coming together. Although she does have a very good friend who is based on my best friend who lives in Denver. So they do have these phone conversations, and which is sort of sad almost because you get a sense of what she used to have and is now missing. And I actually think it's like very common. I'm in my 40s and people have moved away, and these relationships that they get frayed and I mean, you really have to look after them, and it's work. And if you are distracted or focus on something else, like you feel that loss.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like resonated with that feeling of like you said, your relationships are a lot of work and things fall to the side. So yeah.
Yeah, we have somebody commented. Where is it? Oh, I see one I want to read. Donna, our friend, said one of our library friends said they she's downloaded it. She's so excited for all of the books, and she said book club potential extraordinaire. So I just want to say from Donna's lips. So I think there's a lot to discuss here. There's a lot of like interconnected themes of memory too, and looking back and understanding. So I mean, who am I to say? Maybe read all of these together for your book club. And then I want to ask Natalie a question. So I think, you know, we have a lot of humor in your book and books, and I think maybe just as like my millennial self that I'm projecting, but I feel like there's this feeling of kind of like there's never an end line. Like Mona, I get it. Mona is like, I'm gonna work, and if I do the right things and I work at like 110%, I'm gonna get what I want. Like the apartment will come later, and then you're like, well, you're already working at a deficit all the time. So what was it? How was it to kind of strip her of that work comfort zone and kind of plop her in the middle of this community? Like how did that help move the plot forward, I guess?
Yeah, she like because it's such a millennial thing that we sort of grew up in a world we were promised that, you know, you work hard and you're gonna get the promotion and you're gonna get the upgrade in life, and not quite working out like we were promised. And so just a few things kind of keep happening out of the blue that are unprecedented. And so for Mona, she sorry, I keep I tried to block the sun because I don't have blinds, and yeah, so that's what yeah, so for Mona, she keeps yeah, she was working, and she thought that she was going to get the upgrade, but then as soon as she's sort of sent home, she's sort of lost at sea because she just didn't really um, have any like plans or anything like that. And so she kind of is like acting a little bit weird until she has the goal of selling the apartment, where she's sort of spying on her neighbors and kind of, you know, getting to know them a little bit more, but like in that like from a distance kind of way. And so yeah, so she was pretty on board. And so then as soon as she sort of has a goal to focus on, she really clings to that because she's just so used to doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Like there's always going to be work to do, right? There's always another goal to reach, right? Unfortunately, but it
Yeah.
seems like that's a little more in our grasp of like a short-term goal.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
I'm trying to like be less like Mona in a lot of ways because you know, we can only do
We
so
can
much.
all we can all learn. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
And I have a question for Kelly. I think what made The Story Keeper such a dynamic read is that book within a book dual narrative that you had going on. You kind of really, if you think about it, you wrote two books in one. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
did.
you did, and you did it so well. So I wanted to give you your flowers for that. But what was it kind of like writing this dual narrative? Like, was it a different, like a more difficult approach, a different approach for you? Because you balance them so well that
Oh,
I was
thank
just
you.
really interested in your process for that.
Well, I've written, I don't know how many dual point of view books now. So it's kind of the same thing. But in this case, the book within the book had to stand alone as its own story. So I had to be able to, I use Scrivener for writing, and so I would kind of hide the Fiona chapters. Fiona's my protagonist in the modern day. I had to kind of hide her chapters and then just look at the Midnight Estate chapters to make sure that if I gave someone that by itself, it had to make sense because it's supposed to be a book of its own. And so it was a little different in that regard because they have to connect, but they also have to work separately. So it was a bit more challenging. But I think having the characters that I had, there's two kind of. Fiona is my main character, and she's in her 50s, and she's kind of at this fresh start where the future's a complete blank. And so being quite a strong woman who is quite resilient, she knows she's going to be okay. So she kind of drives, she pushes towards the end of the Midnight Estate to try and figure out the mystery of how on earth it connects to the house. So that kind of helped. And even I have a past. Her uncle was quite key in her childhood. Uncle Tad, and he was a literary writer, a quite eccentric, quirky literary writer, and so much of the story in the house relates to Tad. And so that combination, I think, really helped because I could kind of see where things had to line up and where things had to be apart. And I don't know, it was just something about that whole balance that made it work. Hopefully makes it work.
That is so cool. I love hearing that you had that program, by the way, that you mentioned. So many of my friends who are writers, this is not promoted, but apparently
I just wrote it down. I've never even heard of it.
Oh, really? It's so complicated, but as an author, you only need to use like 10% of it. So if you open it, don't be daunted because the screenwriters use it for all sorts of things. But for us, there's like 10% that would change your life if you can push past the overwhelm.
But I just love hearing you say like you could hide all the other chapters and read it. Like it truly works that way. And I would be so interested if some librarian out there wants, I wonder what it would be like to just read those chapters and then read the whole book at once. So somebody go do that and like let us know how that goes.
Oh, I would love to hear what they think if they do that. That's such a cool idea.
I wish I had thought to do that. Thank you. That's so cool.
We might have a couple more questions, but we have some very pressing questions, which is what type of dogs, which I think refers to Meg's or somebody's bio. Who was it? Was it Kelly's? Somebody wants. If anyone has dogs, talk about the dogs.
Yeah, we've moved on to the exciting portion of the evening. The books are amazing, but dog chat is where it's at. Sully is an 11-year-old black Labrador who has, the stereotypical Labrador appetite. Everything is about food. He is too lazy to be a guide dog or anything like that. But if outside of, you could probably train him to do brain surgery if the treats were good enough. And Basil we call her a Franken puppy because she's some combination of a whole bunch of different dogs. There's some Spaniel in there. There's probably some Labrador. There's a bit of like poodle. And she's the naughty one. People are intimidated by the enormous black lab, but it's the little fluffy white one you got to watch.
That's how it always goes.
I love that. And then
I have in my bio, I think I also mentioned a dog, and he's Biscuit. He's right here, and he keeps wanting me to like not be in my office right now. He's like, it's not work time right now, so he keeps kind of like going back and forth. And he looks like a beagle, but we're not really sure what he is.
I love it. And cats. I feel like I don't want to leave the cats out. If anyone, okay, Meg has a cat, so you can tell us the cat's name if you would like.
A very fluffy, chatty little calico named Budino, after the Italian word for pudding.
I love that. I also have a chatty calico. I understand. They love to
got a lot to say.
They love to yell.
Yeah.
I love this. I like that this has become the conversation. And then Renee also asked, Alexandra, do you have a background in art?
I don't really. I minored in it in college, which feels like a very long time ago, but it's mostly just like a hobby thing. Yeah, I like just going to look at it. I don't pretend to really know what I'm doing, but I sort of actually think that's the way you should do it.
Well, it's you say like you pretend to, but because I really thought that was a real artist. To be honest, I think you're doing a great job.
There's this fantastic book called 9th Street Women that's about the women of abstract expressionism. And for a lot of like, I don't know, like personality stuff, or if I was pulling like anecdotes or painting styles, like a lot of it I took from there. It's such a great book. I mean, it's nonfiction. It's such a great book.
Oh, I did internet stalk you before this because I wanted to know the answer to the question, and I'm glad somebody asked.
Someone said it would be cool for half a book club to read half the book the inside book and then have the discussion in the other. So there you go. Maybe this is a thing. Maybe we've started a trend.
Cool.
Okay, and then I think I was gonna ask, oh, I know, Meg, I wanted to ask you about point of view because I feel like this is such a sibling story as well. And I feel like I could have happily seen from the eyes of any of the siblings going through this too. So, did you ever write anything outside of the two characters, or was that just like always going to be the point of view?
Well, I actually have an even crazier answer to this question than you might be expecting, which is that originally, in the very earliest version of this, Alex and Anna were siblings. And then I realized that the story sort of didn't make sense if they were siblings and that they needed to be friends. And then, I would sort of had just gotten stuck in like the very, very early stages of it. And then once I realized that, the whole story kind of unlocked and I could write it. But I think to answer that, like the siblings, it was always a sibling story to me on some level. And I love Alex's family. Alex comes from a big family. I also come from a big family. I also have siblings who are much, much older than me. And I think that it was important to me to sort of show that dynamic on the page, sort of what it feels like to be the littlest in like a big, boisterous group. And I think hopefully if I did my job right, that you feel like you could imagine the whole story from Jake's perspective or from Claire's perspective or from Art's perspective, and that you could kind of be a part of the Whitman family in kind of like a Glass family way. That was a big inspiration for the book as well. I remember pitching it to my agent as like, paranormal Franny and Zoe.
I love that. No, definitely, because I kept thinking like, oh, but like, what are they doing? What's the story there? Like, I could have gone into many different directions. So totally. All right, great. So I think we're about to run out of time. So I just want to make sure we got to all the questions. So I think a lot of great comments though.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we got one from Samantha just now. Oh, for Meg. After you left Area 51, did the skeptic change their opinion?
No, he didn't. And that was actually something that was really inspirational for me as well for this book, which was that skepticism ended up seeming to me as dogmatic as any belief. And that sort of, I wanted to write about someone sort of on like a journey toward being like truly open-minded and being able to kind of sit with the discomfort of like the U in UFO. Like, can we live with something being unidentified? And it's really hard. And we either want to say it's definitely not aliens or it's definitely aliens. And it's much harder to imagine that it could be anything. And we just don't have the answer.
Love that. Okay. We are coming to the end, so we are gonna ask the question of what is everyone reading and loving, and I'm going to be typing and putting these in a catalog for the librarians. So I just ask that you say titles slowly and clearly, and I will be typing like my kindergarten typing teacher taught me to. So whoever wants to start, go ahead.
I can call names too. Okay,
One
go for it.
one of the books I read most recently was Voyagers, which I actually adored. And then I think the book I read before that was Flesh by David Zalai, which I loved, and it also really fascinated me because I can't figure out why I loved it. Before that, I had read The Sisters, that Norwegian, Swedish writer, which has so much like plot, and I felt like I should have been pulled into that, but it was Flesh that really, really got me.
Kelly, I'm sure you
I
have many books to recommend since you own a bookstore, but give it a
Yeah.
whirl.
Yeah. Okay. I've been reading a ton of nonfiction lately. I've just finished The Men Who Hate Women, which is Laura Bates. It's still on my desk. That's why I'm looking at the title. And I've been down this rabbit hole of kind of digital minimalism lately. So I every single time I talk to anyone, I have to talk about Kyle Chakra's book, which the title is completely eluding me, but it's over there. Hang on a sec. Filter World. Everybody should read that book. Hudification, nope, the author's name is gone. There's my 3 nonfiction suggestions. But I've just read Project Hail Mary because I wanted to read it before I saw the film, which I'm seeing tonight. And I absolutely loved that book. It was such a fun ride. Heartbreaking, sciencey, geeky, but just so good. And I'm reading Hamnet now because, again, I wanted to read the book before I see the film. So Maggie O'Farrell, Hamnet.
I read The Martian really late, and so then I thought, it be for me? I'm not sure. And then I read it and want to talk about it with everyone. I'm like, I know this is not a hot take. Like everyone knows about this book and loves it, but such a great writer. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're into sarcasm at all, there's nobody
Yeah.
who does it better than Eddie Weir. He's so good.
Love it. Okay, Natalie.
Oh yeah. So I recently read Cleo Dang Would Rather Be Dead by another fellow Canadian author named Mai Nguyen. And it is about someone who suffered the recent loss of her full-term child, but also like is on a leave of absence. Maybe I didn't realize that until now, but yeah, she's also on a leave of absence from work, but she ends up working at a funeral home. And this book just really stuck with me. It was just the way that the way that she looks at grief and just the beauty of life. It was a beautiful book. And then I also love thrillers, and I read Best Offer Wins, which I'm sure other people have heard of recently. And I was like so invested in this real estate transaction. It was pretty wild to think that a book about a real estate transaction can go as far as it did. I think, yeah, no spoilers, but it goes pretty far.
I love that. And then Meg.
I also sort of recently read a horror book about a real estate transaction. I read Salem's Lot, the old Stephen King, which absolutely terrified me down to my bones. So if anyone wants to be really scared and tell their husband that they're going to have a nightmare and then wake up screaming several hours later, you can read that book. I also read Alexandra's amazing book. It's a very sexy mystery. I gulped it down, so you all have to read it. And then I've also been, for the last, at this point, 7 months in an Infinite Jest book club with a bookstore, McNally Jackson, here in New York. And it's so much fun. And we are on, we're reaching page 700 now. So it's been a really great way to read that book. And it shocks me with how prescient and relevant it still feels. So highly recommend it.
Talk about infinite. That's a lot of pages. Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you. Those were really great. And before we say goodbye to our viewers, I just want to bring back our jackets one more time and tell you on sale dates, and a very big thank you to all of our authors. This has been a really lovely night. I could listen. I have 10 more questions, but I will refrain. But we heard tonight from Meg Charlton, author of Voyagers, out June 16th. Kelly Rimmer, author of The Story Keeper, out July 21st. Alexandra Andrews, author of The Fine Art of Lying, out May 5th. And Natalie Sue, author of You'll Love It Here, out August 11th. Thank you so much for coming on. And for our viewers, don't forget, big reveal next time on Writers to Watch. In April, we have a really great lineup. So go ahead and mark that on your calendar. April 23rd, we'll be back for another night of fantastic author talks, and you'll hear about these 4 books. And a reminder, if you're on Crowdcast, early access to eGalleys, you get them. So be sure to sign up and await that email. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye to our authors and thank you so, so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us. Bye-bye.
Bye.